Hello, my name is Bradley Sarmiento, and I am the lead designer for our game, Nightmare Outpost. We are Rad Raven, and our team consists of Kent Me, our producer, Nathan Bullock, our level designer, Usume Jovi Usude, our programmer, and Alexander Britt, our artist. Our vision statement for Nightmare Outpost was that in Nightmare Outpost, you must build and survive waves of monsters. Survive the waves while collecting upgrades and scrap to fortify and upgrade your base. The summary for the game is that the Nightmare Outpost is a single-player game where players must survive waves of incoming monsters. Players must collect scrap and gold to build defenses to help them fight off the waves of monsters. Players must manage their defenses wisely due to limited time and resources. With each wave, more monsters will spawn, creating a further challenge for the player and their defenses.
Thanks, Bradley, for introducing the slideshow. And so here we have our burn down chart for the entire project. So we ended up assigning 266 cards and completed 233 of them across our 7 sprints. Though admittedly, our final sprint was short because we were focusing primarily on delivering our build and only had 1 week to do it. So we had 33 cards that did not make it to completion that were assigned. These, of course, were during the final sprint when we had a bunch of stuff we were considering doing, but didn't end up making the cut because we were focusing on ensuring that our build was working. And so now I'm going to pass it back off to Bradley again. Thank you.
Thanks, Kent. So as far as what went wrong on my end as a lead designer, is I didn't have a prepared design document ready before starting the class. As a result, I had to create an entire design document within the first sprint, causing us to be behind a whole sprint. By not having a design document ready, I also did not have such a strong vision as I would have hoped, and I also suffered from thinking too large of a scope. One last thing that I failed to accomplish was fully implement some of the playtest feedback. A lot of it was implemented, but I think could have been a lot stronger for the next time. Now I will pass it on to Kent again.
Thanks, Bradley. Now, what went wrong for me in the course of this project? As a producer, one of the biggest disappointments is when team members fall behind. And it was particularly bad when everybody, including myself, were falling behind on our project work in the sprint following our return from the spring break. This was just, not acceptable, but unfortunately, that's how it occurred. I also was working on finishing UI health bars for the enemies and buildings, but unfortunately, I was taking too long to finish it and had to pass it off to a programmer, Sume, to complete because it was beyond my expertise. I should have been able to do it, but he did a really good job finishing it. I was also unable to implement the many sound effects that I had found over the course of the latter sprints in the final build due to difficulties with testing. So now I'm going to pass it off to Nathan.
Now, regarding what went wrong, I think one of the areas that went wrong for our project was trying to have 2 core design mechanics to it. So exploration and base building, the 2 were in opposition to one another, and the playtesters were only focusing on the base building elements. And we had tried to make the exploration mechanics work for the players, but eventually we decided to just cut exploration entirely and focus solely on base building. Had we made that decision much earlier in development, we could have focused on the base building and reinforced it and its related mechanics and made it a better experience for the players. Next up, I'll pass it off to Sume.
The first thing that I feel went wrong is our production pipeline, because there would be assets and other things left unfinished, which would cause us to have to update the scene a lot later than we would like, which would lead to prioritization issues with our tasks. So those task prioritization, we would prioritize tasks that aren't really much of a priority and could be finished a lot later because they're a lot simpler to do. And what this led to was we would have less time to work on more important things. And then the last thing I feel went wrong was not communicating when we make changes to the scene/GitHub. So it caused conflict errors, it would cause major bugs, and we had to set ourselves back to work through those bugs. And I will be handing it off to Alex to talk about what he felt went wrong.
For what went wrong for me, models took a bit longer to create than I anticipated. Since I modeled them in ZBrush and then transferred them over to Maya, it took a bit longer than expected. The character and enemies were kind of lacking in animations, so it didn't really make the game feel as alive as I would have hoped. And also, not all of the planned monsters were actually made it into the game. And now I'm going to pass it on to Bradley for what.
As far as what went right for me as a lead designer is I think I did a good job of staying on track with the project. There was nothing I didn't know about the project as it was developing. Any questions that needed to be answered, I had. I also did a good job at adapting game design as changes were being made through the development cycle. I also delegated and prioritized all the important tasks first, and I also am very proud of my 3D assets such as these guns, which was my first time creating 3D guns. And finally, I think I did a good job at focusing on the element of fun, making sure that players felt like they were having fun as they were playing our game. Now I'll pass it back to Kent.
Thanks, Bradley. So what went right for me this project? Well, I created a lot of cool textures, which were used for the ground in our various levels. I created a functioning health bar user interface for the player, where the health bar would go down as the player progressed in losing health. And I also found some good royalty-free music for the game. And I also ensured the team maintained a healthy pace and delivered a fun final product. While there was a lot of stuff we wanted to do, a lot of it ended up on the cutting room floor, and that was okay. I'm going to pass it off to Nathan.
All right, thank you, Kent. I'll be taking over now. So regarding what went right on my end, I believe one of the areas that went right for me was the level design process, creating the levels, outlining them, the maps, the critical flow charts, blockouts, the whole 40 yards that goes into level design. That went well, and the levels that I was able to create were well received amongst the team members and greatly appreciated by the lead as it helped create his design vision for the game. Next up, I'll be passing it off to Sume.
So, what I feel went right with our production was the building system I created, because it's pretty complex, but it works well and it was appealing to the players, and it's one of the main features of our game. The next thing I feel went right was compiling our work in the scene. After the first two sprints, we had our prototype to work off of, so it was really streamlined to add things to the scene and get everything to scale. And then the last thing I feel went right was the UI and the videos we use for the tutorials, because our game's a little more complex and we have a lot of controls. So having videos and small UI to tell players the controls and show off how the individual turrets work makes things a lot easier and a lot more understandable for the player. And I will be passing it off to Alex.
For me, what went right, I feel that the visual aesthetic was kept consistent with each model and texture, so it really made it feel like every part of the game fit nicely with each other inside the game as package. I was really proud of how each model turned out, and I also think constant communication that was kept between the entire team, uh, it helped out so much in terms of just the production of the project as a whole. Yeah, now we're gonna go on to what would we do again? On to Bradley. And
This is what I would do again for our future games, is I would continue to support my team and be active at all times. I'm very proud that I was on call, ready to go whenever my teammates had any questions or had any concerns regarding the game. We're also continuing to focus on my teammates' strengths, making sure that their talents are being utilized in the best possible way. I will also continue to have a positive work environment, making sure everyone feels comfortable and everyone feels like they're having a good time as we're developing these games. And finally, I'll just continue to celebrate our accomplishments, no matter how big or small. Now I will pass it on to Kent.
Thanks, Bradley. So now we're going to go over what I would do again. That I think things I think we did well, and I want us to do in future projects, whether we're working together or whether I'm working with a new group of people. So the first, of course, is to focus on each team member's strength. We all have different abilities that we're good at and things that we're not so good at. And so focusing on where we're good is a great place to start in order to ensure that our product is a good quality product. And of course, with that, ensuring that the final product is fun. Fun is the thing we're aiming to create as a game. Now, obviously, some games aim for things that are tertiary to traditional fun, but still, typically, we're looking for fun. And so ensuring that the product is fun is a core principle. I think we did a good job on that. And also, of course, as a producer, part of my job is to, tamper the expectations of our lead and cut down scope when necessary. We got to cut a lot of things. We got a lot of cool ideas, but not all of that makes it to the final product. So now I'm going to pass it to Nathan.
All right, now regarding the changes I would have made or I've learned from this experience the true importance of listening to the players and understanding their actions they take and why. In previous projects, I could have just made slight tweaks to a game and still have the same desired effect I wanted for players. However, here we had to make a massive change to our design philosophy to improve the fun of the players, and in future projects, we'll be going forward trying to truly understand how and why players behave the way they do, so that way we can narrow in on the fun to make a better game for players. And I will pass it off to Sime now.
So, as for what I would do again, I would communicate my work better with the team and make my scripts more approachable for the rest of my team, because not everybody has the same understanding of scripting, and some aspects of it are a little more complicated than others. So, it would be in my best interest to explain it to the team so that everybody has the same knowledge base so that we can have a more streamlined process of editing. And then the last thing, and most important thing, is to begin bug fixing as early as possible. There were some bugs that were found early in the game, but I ignored them because they weren't really game breaking and I was trying to focus more on adding features. But in the long run, they ended up becoming game breaking bugs that were difficult to fix and took more time than they should have. And had I fixed them early before they become bigger, it would have been very simple and it would have led to less issues in the long run.
for me, what I would do again is, as I said before, kind of staying in communication with the lead and producer when designing visuals. Since, as a visual designer and a character model, it is super important to stay in touch with the people who really know how they want the game to look. I also want to continue to create visuals that are consistent with the rest of the game's visuals in the future. I will also prepare myself by allocating more time on my work for character. And this has been Rad Raven. Thank you so much for listening.